The scent of antiseptic and fading flowers usually fill the air on the hospice floor of St. Jude's Hospital. But for Nurse Sarah Jenkins, today it was mingled with a whisper of something else. Unspoken hopes. Sarah was good at her job, exceptional. Her colleagues called her the one with the sunshine touch, a quiet compliment for her ability to bring light into the dimmest rooms. She moved with purpose, her sneakers squeaking softly on the linoleum, a smile always ready even when her heart ached. Today her heart was definitely aching. She pushed open the door to room 312, where Mrs. Eleanor Vance resided. Mrs. Vance was a woman woven from silk and steel, with silver hair like spun moonlight and eyes that still held a spark of youthful mischief, even as her body gave way to time. At 87, Eleanor had lived a full life filled with laughter, a loving husband now long gone, and a lifelong devotion to two things: her garden and Elvis Presley. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance," Sarah said, her voice soft as she approached the bedside. She adjusted the blinds, letting a shaft of morning sunlight paint a warm stripe across the crisp white sheets. Eleanor stirred, her eyes fluttering open. A weak smile touched her lips. "Good morning, dear. You're looking especially bright today. Did you manage to catch some of that beautiful sunrise?" Sarah nodded, pulling up a chair. "I did. It was lovely. How are you feeling this morning, truly?" Eleanor sighed a sound that was less a complaint and more an acknowledgement. "Tired mostly, like my batteries are running on fumes, but surprisingly peaceful. I think my time is drawing near, Sarah." Sarah's hand instinctively reached for Eleanor's, her thumb gently stroking the papery skin. She didn't respond with platitudes. She just held on, letting Eleanor know she was heard. "There's something," Eleanor continued, her voice growing softer. "Something I've always wished for. A silly old woman's dream, I suppose, but it's been with me since I was a girl, listening to him on the radio." She paused, her eyes drifting to a framed, faded photograph on her nightstand. A young Elvis, impossibly handsome, with that famous smirk. "What is it, Mrs. Vance?" Sarah prompted gently. Knowing these final wishes were often the most poignant, Eleanor's gaze sharpened, meeting Sarah's, who had been gone from the world for decades. How could she possibly? "Oh, dear," Eleanor chuckled, a fragile sound. "I know it's utterly impossible. Isn't it a fantasy? But it's been nagging at me, a whisper in my mind." Her eyes were filled with a wistful longing that tugged at Sarah's heartstrings. Sarah swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. The logical part of her brain screamed, "Impossible. He's gone." But another part? The part that was a nurse, a carer, a human being who cared deeply for this gentle soul, refused to give up before she even started. She looked at Eleanor's face, etched with age but alight with this impossible hope, and something shifted within her. "Mrs. Vance," Sarah began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I can't promise anything, you know that, but if there's any way, any tiny sliver of a chance, I will try for you." Eleanor's eyes widened, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "Oh, Sarah," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're a dear, sweet girl. Don't waste your precious time on an old woman's fancy. But thank you, just for saying you'd try." "It's not a waste, Mrs. Vance, not if it brings you peace. I'll think about it. I'll see what I can find." Leaving Eleanor's room, Sarah felt a heavy weight settle on her shoulders. The request was outlandish, bordering on delusional, given the circumstances. Elvis Presley had died in 1977. But the look in Eleanor's eyes, that glimmer of a wish from a pure heart, resonated deeply within Sarah. How could she just dismiss it? How could she tell Eleanor that her final innocent dream was simply unobtainable? The rest of her shift passed in a blur of medication rounds, patient consultations, and charting. But beneath it all, the impossible wish gnawed at her. She saw Elvis's face on the nightstand, heard Eleanor's soft, hopeful voice. She felt the pressure of Eleanor's fragile hand in hers. What did try even mean in this context? call a psychic, find a very convincing impersonator? The very idea felt disrespectful to Eleanor's genuine longing. Sarah knew she had to do something. Even if it was a futile gesture, the act of trying was important. It showed respect, it showed love. But where on earth did one even begin to try and get a phone call from someone who had passed away decades ago? Question echoed in her mind as she clocked out the silence of the empty staff room, amplifying the impossibility of it all. This wasn't just a challenge. It was a quest against time and, seemingly, against reality itself. Sarah drove home the late afternoon, sun casting long shadows. The city outside her car window felt indifferent to her impossible mission. She kept replaying Eleanor's words, that hopeful, almost shy request. I want to hear him, just his voice. How do you explain to a dying woman that her hero is gone, truly gone, and no phone call is coming? Sarah had always believed in honesty, but sometimes compassion demanded a different approach. She called her best friend, Liam, a paramedic who had seen more than his fair share of unusual requests in the field. He listened patiently, a quiet hum on the other end of the line as Sarah poured out the story. Sarah, I hear you, Liam said eventually, his voice gentle. And it's incredibly sweet that you want to do this for her. But Elvis died in '77. Are we talking about a very convincing impersonator? Because if it's her last wish, maybe she just needs to hear someone who sounds like him. Sarah frowned. No, I don't think that's what she meant. She knows he's gone. She's lucid. I think she meant a miracle. Or maybe she's just expressing a deep longing, and it's up to me to find a way to honor that longing, even if it's not a literal phone call. But even as she said it, a part of her rebelled against the impersonator idea. It felt like a cheat, not a fulfillment. Liam sighed. Look, I admire your dedication as always. Maybe you could find old recordings of him speaking, not singing, interviews, something personal. I've thought of that, Sarah admitted. But she said, a phone call. It's the live, personal connection she's after, however impossible. After hanging up with Liam, Sarah paced her small apartment. Her usual evening routine of cooking and unwinding felt pointless. She logged onto her old laptop, the screen flickering to life. Where do you even start? Quick search for Elvis Presley phone number yielded exactly what she expected: fan club numbers, museum contacts, and news articles about his life and death. Nothing remotely useful. She tried Elvis Presley family contact, websites for Graceland tours, information about Priscilla and Lisa Marie, but no direct contacts for casual inquiries. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the needle was a phantom. Hours passed. Sarah found herself deep in forums for Elvis fanatics, some of them still active after decades. She read posts from people who had met him, people who had seen him perform, people who still mourned him like a close friend. She started to understand Eleanor's devotion better. For millions, Elvis wasn't just a singer. He was an icon, a symbol of an era, a voice that had shaped their lives. Then a tiny flicker deep within an old, forgotten fan forum. A post from 2005. Someone was asking about the inner circle, the people who were truly close to Elvis. This was a long shot, a desperate attempt. It was like trying to track down a ghost. The results were sparse. An old article from a local Tennessee newspaper about a historical society meeting. It felt like giving up on Eleanor's true wish. She decided to try one more time. Sarah Jenkins, Tennessee, Elvis. This time, she focused on living people, hoping for a relative or someone connected to him. And then, there it was. Not a direct contact, but a mention in a very obscure blog post from a music historian. Talked about Arthur's deep loyalty to Elvis and his private reclusive life after Elvis's death. The blog post gave a general area in rural Tennessee, miles from any major city. And then a single, almost throwaway line: he lived for many years near Lynchburg, Tennessee, before moving to a smaller, even more isolated town called Bell Buckle. Known for its antique shops and quiet charm, Bell Buckle, Sarah felt a jolt. This was something concrete, however vague. Could she really track down an old retired road manager? Based on a few cryptic hints, it seemed insane. But Eleanor's face, her quiet hope flashed in Sarah's mind. She searched for Bell Buckle, Tennessee phone directory. The town was tiny, barely a dot on the map. The directory was thin. She scrolled through names. Then she saw it. Jenkins, Arthur. Address and phone number. Could it be him? Could it be the Arthur Jenkins, or just someone with the same common name? Her hand trembled as she picked up her phone. It was late, almost midnight. Too late to call, she knew, but a fragile thread of hope, almost imperceptible hours ago, had somehow woven itself into a shimmering possibility. She copied the number onto a sticky note, a small prayer forming on her lips. She wasn't just a nurse anymore, she was a detective, driven by an old woman's last impossible wish. She would call first thing in the morning. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the hospital an hour earlier than her shift. Her stomach, a nervous knot. She found a quiet corner in the nurse's lounge, away from the bustling morning activity. Her fingers hovered over the phone keypad, punching in the number she'd found. It felt moral, like she was dialing a number from a dream. The phone rang once, twice, a long drawn-out ring. Sarah's heart pounded on the third ring. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm a registered nurse at St. Jude's Hospital. I know this is a long shot and you probably get calls like this all the time, but I'm trying to find someone who might have worked with Elvis Presley back in the day. Your name came up in some old fan forums. Are you that Arthur Jenkins? Another silence. Sarah could almost hear the man on the other end weighing her words, deciding if she was a nuisance fan or something else. Finally, the voice softened. Just a fraction. Used to haven't thought about those days in a while. What's this about nurse relief washed over Sarah? It was him. Mr. Jenkins, I have a patient here, Mrs. Eleanor Vance. She's 87 and she's nearing the end of her life. She's been a lifelong fan of Elvis Presley. He was her hero, her inspiration, her our is voice. Qui. Arr. Hear his voice, nurse. Bless your heart. But you know he's been gone for decades, right? I appreciate your dedication to your patient, but what exactly do you think I can do? His tone was dismissive, but not unkind. More weary. I know, Mr. Jenkins, I know he's gone, Sarah pleaded, her voice cracking slightly with the weight of it all. But I've read that you were very close to him. You were part of his inner circle. I was hoping maybe you knew someone who was still connected to the estate, or someone from his family, who might have a recording of his voice, a private message, anything that could be played over the phone to make her feel like it was him. Or perhaps, she hated suggesting the impersonator idea again, but felt desperate. She needed something, anything to bring back to Eleanor. Arthur was quiet for a long moment. Sarah held her breath, listening to the static on the line, the distant sound of birds outside his window. You really think this would matter that much to her, huh? He finally said, his voice softer now, tinged with a hint of melancholy. Not just to her, but to me, to us, to see her final moments filled with that joy. He cleared his throat. I've tried to put those days behind me. Nurse, it's painful, you know. The king was special. There'll never be another like him. And when he went, a part of me went too. I get calls from fans. A final wish. It is, Sarah affirmed, her voice earnest. Sis, Beaumate, it's not about curiosity or stories. It's about bringing comfort and peace to a dying woman. Another long silence. Sarah thought he was going to hang up. She could hear the skepticism, the reluctance in his voice. But then he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah felt a surge of hope so strong it made her dizzy. "Mr. Jenkins, are you saying you might actually try?" "I'm saying I'll make a few calls," he said, his voice returning to its gruff tone, as if trying to hide the genuine emotion that had just slipped through. "No guarantees, nurse, none at all. This is a crazy, impossible thing you're asking, but for a true fan, one who's reaching the end, I'll make a few calls. Don't expect anything. Call me back in a couple of days if you don't hear from me. But don't hold your breath." "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins," Sarah breathed, tears stinging her eyes. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means." "Just Arthur," he grunted. "And let's hope it means something good for your patient. Goodbye, nurse." And with a click, the line went dead. Sarah sat there, phone still clutched in her hand, staring at the blank wall. She had done it. She had found Arthur Jenkins, and he hadn't dismissed her completely. He was going to try. The odds were still astronomical, practically zero, but for the first time, a tiny, fragile seed of hope had been planted. Now all she could do was wait and pray, and continue to care for Eleanor, who was still unaware of the desperate, quiet mission Sarah had embarked upon. The next 2 days were a torment of waiting. Every time her phone buzzed, Sarah's heart leaped, only to sink when it was a text from Liam or a hospital update. She tried to appear calm and collected during her shifts, especially when she was in Eleanor's room. Eleanor seemed a little weaker, her smiles more fleeting, which only intensified Sarah's urgency. "How are you feeling today, Mrs. Vance?" Sarah asked on her afternoon rounds, fluffing Eleanor's pillow. "About the same, dear," Eleanor murmured, her eyes distant, dreaming of Memphis and that young man with the sideburns. She chuckled softly. "Silly, isn't it?" "Not silly at all," Sarah said, her voice gentle. She wanted so badly to tell Eleanor about Arthur, about the tiny spark of a chance, but she couldn't. Not yet. Not until there was something more concrete than a gruff old man's vague promise. Giving false hope would be crueler than no hope at all. That evening, as Sarah was finishing up her charting, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Her breath caught in her throat. She snatched it up. "Hello, Nurse Sarah Jenkins." The voice was the same gruff one from before Arthur. "Yes, it's me, Mr. Jenkins." Sarah could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. "It's Arthur. Look, I told you no promises." "I still can't make any, but I got through to someone. Some co-animator. Ben is a good man, but he's also fiercely protective of Elvis's memory and his privacy. He gets a lot of requests. You can imagine. People wanting money, wanting fame, wanting to exploit the name. So, he's cautious." Vera said, her voice hushed. "I wouldn't want to exploit anything. This is purely for Mrs. Vance's peace." "I told him that," Arthur continued. "I explained your patient's story, how it's her last wish, how she's a true, devoted fan." He listened, didn't say much at first, asked a lot of questions about you. "Actually, your character, your dedication." Sarah blinked, surprised. "Me? Yeah, Ben's a good judge of character. He wants to know you're not some crackpot. I vouched for you, told him you sounded genuine. He trusts my judgment, which is why he even took the call, said I wouldn't waste his time unless it was important." Arthur's tone held a hint of pride, and Sarah felt a rush of gratitude for the old man. "So, what did he say?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Oh, I can tell him everything," Sarah burst out, a wave of excitement washing over her. "She even has a little blue suede shoe charm on her bedside table, a gift from her husband." Sarah rattled off details, painting a vivid picture of Eleanor's lifelong devotion. She described Eleanor's gentle nature, her quiet dignity, her profound appreciation for simple joys. She emphasized that this wasn't about a grand gesture, but a quiet, deeply personal moment for Eleanor. Arthur listened, interjecting occasionally with a grunt or a "hmm." When she finished, he said, "All right, I'll pass all that on to Ben. He'll get it to the right people. Might take a while. Might not happen at all." But I put the ball in motion. "Arthur," Sarah said, "I don't know how to thank you." "Just make sure that old lady gets her piece," Arthur grumbled. "If it comes to that, that's thanks enough." He paused. This was someone who had walked alongside the king. The impossible was no longer an absolute, solid wall. It was now a shimmering, translucent curtain. With a sliver of light peeking through, she knew she still couldn't tell Eleanor. The weight would be excruciating, the disappointment unbearable if it fell through. But now, when she looked at Eleanor, a new hope blossomed in her heart. A fragile, improbable, but very real hope. The days that followed were an agonizing test of Sarah's patience and resolve. Each shift was a blur of routine tasks, but underneath, a frantic current of anticipation pulled at her. She checked her phone constantly, her gaze lingering on it during every quiet moment. Every unknown number made her heart leap, only to fall back to a steady, disappointed rhythm. Eleanor, meanwhile, seemed to be fading. Her appetite dwindled. Her energy waned further. Sarah noticed the subtle shifts, the longer periods of sleep, the slightly less vibrant spark in her eyes. It pressed on Sarah a constant reminder that time was slipping away. "Are you feeling all right, dear?" Eleanor asked one afternoon, her voice barely a whisper, as Sarah adjusted her IV drip. "You seem preoccupied." Sarah forced a smile. "Just a busy day, Mrs. Vance. Lots to do." She hated lying, but the truth at this stage felt like a cruel tease. She couldn't give Eleanor false hope. The possibility of this call happening was still so infinitesimally small. She found herself making more frequent visits to Eleanor's room, sometimes just sitting quietly, holding her hand, reading to her from a worn copy of Eleanor's favorite poetry book. She watched Eleanor's face, searching for any sign of her spirits, lifting, praying for more time. The weight of the secret was heavy. Sarah couldn't tell her colleagues either. They'd think she was crazy, or worse, that she was building up a dying patient's hopes for something impossible. She was a professional, after all, and chasing after dead rock stars didn't exactly fit the job description. So she carried the burden alone, a silent promise to a gentle soul. Doubt began to creep in. Maybe Arthur had just been trying to be kind, to politely dismiss her. Maybe Ben, the personal assistant, had listened out of politeness and then simply forgotten about it. How could a busy, important person like that possibly spare a thought for a nurse and her dying patient in a small hospital thousands of miles away? The whole idea seemed preposterous. The more she thought about it, had she wasted Arthur's time? Had she been foolish to even believe in such a miracle? She even considered calling Arthur again, just to hear if there was any update, any word. But she remembered his gruff warning. "Don't expect anything. Call me back in a couple of days if you don't hear from me." It had been a week now, and she hadn't heard. She hesitated. Did couple of days mean literally 2 or just a few? Was she being impatient? She decided against it. She didn't want to seem pushy, to squander the goodwill Arthur had shown. Liam noticed her distraction. "You still thinking about this Elvis thing, aren't you?" he asked, catching her during her lunch break. Sarah sighed, pushing around the salad on her plate. Every waking moment. "Lime, she's getting weaker. And I feel like I promised her something impossible. What if I'd built up her hopes, even internally, for something that's never going to happen?" "You didn't promise her anything you didn't mean," Sarah Liam said, his voice kind. "You promised to try and you did. You went above and beyond. That's what matters. You gave her that much at least. And who knows, maybe a miracle will happen." He offered a small, comforting smile. She had seen small miracles in her nursing career, unexpected recoveries, moments of clarity, sudden bursts of strength. But this was different. This wasn't about the human body healing, it was about bending the rules of time and celebrity. She visited Eleanor again before she left for the day. Eleanor was asleep, her breathing shallow. Sarah sat beside her, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest, listening to the soft beeping of the monitor. She reached out and gently stroked Eleanor's arm. "Please, Mrs. Vance," she whispered. "Hold on, just a little longer." The silence in the room seemed to press in on her, filled with unspoken prayers. Sarah felt a profound sense of helplessness. She had tried, she had put in the effort, but sometimes the impossible remained just that. As she walked out of Eleanor's room that evening, the familiar scent of antiseptic felt heavier than usual. The sunshine touch felt a little dimmer. The hope she had felt days ago felt like a fragile, wilting flower. She still held on to the smallest flicker, but the overwhelming feeling was one of impending failure. She had done all she could, and it seemed it wasn't enough. Just as Sarah was about to fully surrender to doubt, as the sense of failure solidified into a heavy weight in her chest, her phone rang. It was late, almost 10 p.m. She was sitting on her couch, trying to lose herself in a book, but her mind kept drifting to Eleanor. Caller ID showed an unknown number, but this time her heart didn't just flutter, it surged with a desperate, almost painful hope. She snatched the phone up on the first ring. "Hello," she managed, her voice a little breathless. "Nurse Jenkins." "It's Arthur." Sarah closed her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her so potent it made her dizzy. "Arthur, I was beginning to think I wouldn't hear from you." "Yeah, well, things take time. Especially when you're dealing with folks in that circle. They're busy people and careful. But I got something." Arthur's voice was different this time, less gruff, more direct. And beneath it, Sarah thought she detected a hint of excitement. "What is it? Did Ben say anything?" Sarah pressed her grip on the phone, tightening. "He did more than say something, nurse. He pulled some strings, big ones." Arthur paused, and Sarah could hear him take a deep breath. "He found a way. It's not a done deal, mind you. Nothing's set in stone until it happens, but he's got someone who can connect you, someone who's with Elvis, as in right now." Sarah gasped. She couldn't believe her ears. "With Elvis, you mean physically with him?" "Yeah," Arthur confirmed, a low chuckle rumbling in his throat. "Ben was genuinely moved by your story about Mrs. Vance. He said he remembered Elvis always had a soft spot for his older fans. The ones who grew up with him said Elvis loved knowing he had made a difference in people's lives, and a last wish that really got to him." "So what does this mean?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "It means that Ben pitched the idea directly to Elvis, and Elvis, he said yes." The words hit Sarah like a physical force. "He said yes," she repeated, disbelieving. Her mind reeled. This was beyond improbable. This was impossible. And yet Arthur, this stoic, pragmatic man, was telling her it was true. "He did," Arthur said, a note of triumph in his voice now. Apparently he was touched. Said something about honoring his fans, especially one who'd been so loyal for so long. Said it was the least he could do. He wants to make the call. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh my God, Arthur, this is unbelievable." "Believe it, nurse, but here's the catch," Arthur continued, his tone becoming serious. "Absolutely," Sarah vowed, her voice choked with emotion. "I understand completely. Complete privacy. Good. Ben will be in touch directly with you to arrange the specifics. He'll call you from a private number. So keep your phone close. You'll need to be ready to put him through to Mrs. Vance as soon as he calls, and you need to make sure Mrs. Vance is lucid enough to appreciate it. How is she doing, really?" She's weaker," Sarah admitted, "but she's still lucid. She'll understand. She'll be so incredibly happy." "This will give her so much peace, Arthur." "All right then, it's a miracle. Nurse, you pulled off a miracle. Not many people could have done this. You have a good heart." Arthur's voice was softer than Sarah had ever heard it, almost gentle. "It was you, Arthur," Sarah whispered. "You made the connections. You believed me." "We both did what we could for a good cause," he corrected. "Now stand by your phone. Ben will be in touch. And nurse, congratulations. You're about to make an old woman's dream come true." The call ended, leaving Sarah in stunned silence. Elvis Presley. After all the doubt, all the dead ends, all the hours of searching, the impossible had taken a tentative step into the realm of the possible. The weight on her shoulders was replaced by a giddy, almost unbelievable lightness, but then a fresh wave of anxiety. He'd her sure everything was perfect. This wasn't just a phone call, it was a sacred moment. The next day passed in a blur of anticipation. Sarah felt like she was vibrating with suppressed energy. Ben Carter. Mr. Carter. Sarah breathed, relief washing over her. "Thank you for calling." "Arthur told me everything," Ben said, his voice even and measured, but with an underlying warmth. And Elvis was truly touched by Mrs. Vance's story. He genuinely wants to do this for her. He remembered how much the fans meant to him, especially the early ones. He knows it's a profound request. "It means the world to her, Mr. Carter. And to me," Sarah confessed. "Good. So here's the plan. Elvis has a small window of availability tomorrow afternoon between 2 p.m. and 2:15 p.m. Pacific time. That's 5 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. Your time, correct?" "Yes, that's perfect," Sarah exclaimed, mentally calculating the hospital schedule. "Excellent. Now the logistics. This call must be absolutely private. No one else can know, no recordings, no media, no other patients. This is a personal gesture from Elvis to Mrs. Vance. Can you ensure complete discretion and privacy?" "I'll arrange a private room. I'll make sure there are no interruptions." "It will be completely confidential." "Good. I'll call your direct line at the hospital right at 5 p.m. Your time. You'll need to be with Mrs. Vance, ready to put the phone to her ear. We anticipate the call will be brief, maybe 5 minutes at most. Elvis just wants to say hello, thank her for her support, maybe hear a word or two." "She'll be so thrilled," Sarah whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "One more thing, nurse," Ben added. "We'd like her to be as comfortable as possible. And if she has a favorite song, maybe mention it to her beforehand. It might help set the mood." "Her favorite is Can't Help Falling in Love," Sarah replied instantly. "It was her wedding song." "Beautiful," Ben murmured. "I'll pass that on. Now, are there any other questions or concerns on your end?" "No, Mr. Carter," Sarah said, feeling overwhelmed. "Just thank you. Thank you more than words can say." "My pleasure, nurse. See you on the line tomorrow. And remember, absolute secrecy." Call ended, leaving Sarah with a mixture of exhilaration and immense pressure. She had just committed to ensuring a private phone call from Elvis Presley to a dying patient. The responsibility was immense. Her first task was to secure a private room. She approached her supervisor, nurse manager Miller, a stern but fair woman. "Ms. Miller," Sarah began, choosing her words carefully, "I have a patient, Mrs. Vance, who needs absolute quiet and privacy for a very personal family call tomorrow afternoon. It's extremely sensitive. Could we move her to the quietest private room available for that hour?" Ms. Miller raised an eyebrow. "A family call that important? We're short on private rooms, Sarah. It's a matter of immense importance to her well-being in her final days," Sarah insisted, looking Ms. Miller directly in the eye. "It would bring her profound peace. I can guarantee it will be quick and discreet." Ms. Miller sighed, considering. She trusted Sarah. "All right, Jenkins. Room 301 is empty tomorrow afternoon, but I expect you to manage it perfectly. No disruptions, Miller. You won't regret it." Next, Sarah gently approached Eleanor. "Mrs. Vance," she said, her voice deliberately calm. "Tomorrow afternoon we're going to move you to a quieter room for a little while. Just for some peace and quiet. Maybe a nice nap." She didn't mention the call directly, wanting to preserve the surprise and avoid any unnecessary excitement that might cause Eleanor distress. Eleanor merely nodded, too tired to question. "Whatever you think is best, dear." Sarah spent the rest of the day and the following morning double-checking every detail. She ensured the phone in room 301 had a clear line. She placed a small framed photo of Elvis, one Eleanor cherished, next to the phone. She made sure Eleanor was comfortable, pain-free, and as alert as possible. She dimmed the lights, creating a serene, intimate atmosphere. The clock ticked agonizingly, slowly towards 5 p.m. Sarah's heart pounded with a mix of dread and elation. What if the call didn't come? What if something went wrong? What if the call didn't come? What if something went wrong? She took a deep, steadying breath, preparing herself for the most extraordinary phone call of her life. The afternoon sun, warm and golden, streamed through the window of room 301. Sarah had moved Eleanor there just an hour before the appointed time. The room felt different from Eleanor's usual one, quieter, more isolated, almost sacred. Sarah had adjusted the blankets placed to cool comb her silvery hair. "Feeling comfortable, Mrs. Vance?" Sarah asked, her voice soft. Eleanor's eyes fluttered open. She looked around the unfamiliar room, then back at Sarah. "Yes, dear. Very peaceful here. Is it time for my nap?" "Not quite yet," Sarah said, pulling a chair close to the bedside. She took Eleanor's hand, her thumb stroking the back of it. "Mrs. Vance, something very special might happen in a few minutes. A friend of mine, he knows someone who might want to say hello. Someone you admire very much." Sarah chose her words carefully, trying to prepare Eleanor without revealing the incredible truth. She didn't want to cause a shock or worse, disappointment if for some reason the call didn't go through. Eleanor's eyes, though still a little hazy with fatigue, seemed to brighten. Oh, who might that be? A flicker of curiosity, a rare spark these days, appeared. "Someone who's heard about your enduring appreciation for his music," Sarah said, a small smile playing on her lips. "He's very kind, just listen. Don't worry about talking much, just listen to his voice." Eleanor nodded slowly, a knowing look in her eyes. Perhaps she sensed something, or perhaps her lifelong devotion had instilled in her a quiet readiness for such a moment. "I'll listen, dear," she whispered. Sarah glanced at the wall clock. 4:59 p.m. Her heart was beating like a drum against her ribs. Her palms were sweating. She picked up the old-fashioned hospital phone receiver, her thumb hovering over the on button, ready to press it the instant it rang. Every second felt like an eternity. 5 p.m. The phone remained silent. Sarah's breath hitched. Dread, cold, and sharp pierced through her carefully constructed calm. Had it fallen through? Had something gone wrong? Was this all a cruel prank? 5:01 p.m. Nothing. Sarah's shoulders slumped, a wave of despair washing over her. She knew she should have been prepared for this. It was an impossible request after all. "It's Ben Carter. Is Mrs. Vance ready?" The voice was clear, professional, unmistakable. "Yes, Mr. Carter. She's here. She's ready." Sarah's voice trembled with a mixture of profound relief and overwhelming awe. "Excellent. Please put her on the line. Elvis is here." Sarah's hand, still trembling, hovered over the speaker button. No, Ben had said put the phone to her ear. This needed to be personal. She took a deep breath. "Mrs. Vance," she said, leaning close, her voice husky with emotion. "Your friend is on the line." She gently pressed the cold receiver to Eleanor's ear. Eleanor's eyes were wide now, focused, a profound stillness about her. Sarah held the phone steady, her own ear close enough to hear but ensuring Eleanor was receiving the full direct sound. Then a voice. Deep, rich, unmistakably Southern, a voice that had filled stadiums, enchanted millions, and now in this quiet hospital room spoke directly to one elderly woman. "Hello there, Eleanor. This is Elvis. Elvis Presley." The voice, so familiar, yet impossibly real, filled the small room. It wasn't a recording, not a voice from a crackling old radio. It was live, present breathing. Eleanor's eyes, fixed on Sarah's face, widened further, glistening with unshed tears. A small, shaky gasp escaped her lips. "I hear you're a long-time fan," Elvis's voice continued, gentle and warm, a slight chuckle in his tone. "And I just wanted to say, thank you, darling. Thank you for all your support, all these years. It means the world to me, knowing my music touched your life." Eleanor's grip on Sarah's hand tightened surprisingly. Strong. A single tear traced the path down her wrinkled cheek. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. "I hear your favorite song is 'Can't Help Falling in Love,'" Elvis continued, his voice softer now. "That's a beautiful choice, Eleanor, a real special one. It means a lot to me, too." Then, softly, sweetly, Elvis hummed a few bars of the melody. A wordless, poignant serenade. It was just a few notes, a breathy, soulful rendition of the iconic tune, but it resonated through the room, through Eleanor's very soul. Sarah felt her own eyes welling up, a lump forming in her throat. The sheer impossible beauty of the moment was almost unbearable. Eleanor's eyes closed, a beatific smile gracing her lips. "Elvis," she whispered, her voice a mere breath, but it was filled with such profound adoration and peace. "Oh, my king." "That's sweet of you to say, darling," Elvis replied, his voice full of genuine warmth. "Ben told me you're a very special lady, and I believe it. It's truly an honor to talk to you. You keep on holding on to that music, all right? And know that you're always in my heart, and in the hearts of all who love the music." He paused, a faint sigh audible. "I wish I could talk longer, Eleanor, but I got to go. But know this, I'm sending you all my love and all my best wishes. You be good now. You hear? Thank you." "Elva," Eleanor managed, her voice stronger now, filled with an almost childlike wonder. "Thank you, you've made my dream come true. Always a pleasure for my fans," Elvis said, his voice imbued with a quiet dignity and kindness. "You take care, Eleanor. Goodbye for now." There was a click, and then Ben Carter's voice, Nurse Jenkins. Sarah, still holding the phone to Eleanor's ear, cleared her throat. "Yes, Mr. Carter, it was. It was perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good, my pleasure. Goodbye, nurse." And then the line went dead. Sarah slowly lowered the phone, placing it gently back in its cradle. She looked at Eleanor. The old woman's eyes were still closed, a radiant, peaceful smile on her face. Tears streamed freely down her cheeks, but they were tears of pure joy, of fulfillment. "Mrs. Vance?" Sarah whispered, gently squeezing her hand. Eleanor opened her eyes. They were luminous, shining with an inner light Sarah hadn't seen in weeks. "Call Sarah," she breathed, her voice hoarse with emotion. "He really called. He said my name. He hummed my song." She touched her ear, as if to confirm the reality of it. "I heard his voice. It was amazing, just amazing." Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She simply held Eleanor's hand, sharing in the sacred, beautiful moment. "You did this." "Dear," Eleanor said, her gaze steady, full of an immense gratitude. "You made this happen. How?" "It was a long journey, Mrs. Vance," Sarah managed to say, a tear finally escaping and tracing its own path down her cheek. "But it was worth every step, every single one." Eleanor closed her eyes again, that serene smile returning. "I'm ready now," she murmured, a profound sense of peace settling over her. "I'm truly ready." Sarah sat there for a long time, watching Eleanor, feeling the warmth of her hand. The air in the room seemed to shimmer with something extraordinary, something that transcended the sterile hospital environment. It wasn't just a phone call. It was a wish granted, a dream fulfilled, a lifetime of devotion acknowledged in the most personal, powerful way possible. And in that moment, Sarah knew that she had witnessed something truly miraculous. Peace that settled over Eleanor Vance after that incredible phone call was profound. She drifted in and out of sleep, but each time she woke, a faint, contented smile touched her lips. She spoke little, but her eyes held a new light, a serenity that had been absent before. She would often touch her ear, a soft, almost imperceptible gesture, as if replaying the precious sounds she had heard. Sarah stayed with her, canceling her remaining tasks for the day, feeling that her most important duty was to simply be present. She held Eleanor's hand, occasionally dabbed at the corners of her eyes, which still held a lingering moisture of joy. Around dawn the next morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the window of room 301, Eleanor stirred. She opened her eyes clear and bright and looked directly at Sarah. "Sarah," she whispered, her voice surprisingly strong. "Thank you for everything, for my beautiful life, and for my beautiful ending." She squeezed Sarah's hand, a final, gentle pressure. Her breath hitched once softly, and then with a barely perceptible sigh, her eyes closed. The faint, contented smile remained on her lips. Eleanor Vance, queen of her own quiet world, had gone to meet her king. Sarah sat by her side for a long time, tears silently streaming down her face. It wasn't a sad cry, not entirely. It was a cry of release, of gratitude, of awe at the beauty of what she had witnessed. Eleanor had passed away, not in fear or pain, but in profound peace, her last wish, granted her heart full. The news of Eleanor's passing spread quietly among the hospice staff. But the story of the impossible phone call, though Sarah never explicitly confirmed the caller's identity, became a whispered legend. Sarah simply said, her last wish was granted. She heard a voice that brought her immense joy and peace. Her colleagues, seeing the profound change in Eleanor's final hours, and knowing Sarah's dedication, didn't press for details. They simply saw the miracle. For Sarah, the experience wasn't just about fulfilling a patient's last wish. It was about the power of human connection, the extraordinary lengths one person would go to for another, and the enduring magic of music and kindness. She had been reminded that compassion sometimes meant daring to believe in the impossible, and that even the smallest act of genuine effort could yield astonishing results. She kept the small sticky note with Arthur Jenkins's number, a quiet reminder of the seemingly impossible quest. She never called him again, feeling that the mission was complete and his work was done. But she often thought of him, the gruff man with the hidden heart of gold, who had taken a chance on a desperate nurse. The memory of Eleanor's radiant face, that final beatific smile, became a guiding light for Sarah in her nursing career. It deepened her empathy, strengthened her resolve, and reminded her that every patient held a unique world of hopes, fears, and dreams. She learned that truly caring for someone meant seeing beyond their illness into their soul. Years passed. Sarah continued to be that sunshine touch nurse, but now with an even deeper understanding of life's precious, fleeting moments. She carried the story of Eleanor and Elvis, not as a boast, but as a quiet, sacred truth, a testament to the profound impact a simple act of compassion could have. She never forgot the sound of that voice, so gentle and kind, speaking directly to Eleanor. It taught her that sometimes true heroism wasn't in grand public gestures, but in the quiet, almost invisible acts of making one person's impossible dream astonishingly real. And in doing so, she had not only brought peace to a dying woman, but she had also found a deeper meaning in her own life, forever changed by the amazing phone call that defied all odds. The legacy of Eleanor Vance's last wish and Elvis Presley's incredible kindness lived on, a heartwarming tale etched into the heart of a dedicated nurse.